Hey everybody, Tim here with today's review of Doctor Who, story number 45, The Mind Robber. I love this story. I think it's amazing. It's 5 episodes. They're all intact, which is great. So, first of all, it's interesting because the last episode of the Dominators was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be 6 episodes, and they were like, you know what, this is just too long, it's too drawn out, we're going to knock it down an episode, we're going to go to 5, and then The Mind Robber was supposed to be 4 episodes, and they're like, let's just add it onto that. And so it got bumped up to 5 episodes. And let me tell you, you can tell right off the bat, the whole first episode is nothing. Like, nothing happens, doesn't make sense. It's not until they actually get into, like, this other land, the nowhere land, before it actually becomes interesting. And I think this episode also kind of talks about me a little bit, because I've said before, like, my favorite episode of the first Doctor is the Celestial Toymaker. I loved it. If I could have any episode that was found intact or animated or anything, that would be the episode. Thought it was great. And I mean, even in other shows, like, there's just something about, like, characters going to, like, this alternate dimension where things aren't quite what they seem, and it's almost more like a game. I mean, to be honest with you, going back to, like, Deep Space Nine Season 1, like, the Move Along Home episode is actually voted, like, the worst episode of Deep Space Nine, which I think's stupid. Like, there's much worse episodes out there. But it's actually voted, like, one of the worst episodes of Star Trek. I liked it. I thought it was really good. If you guys saw the review I did for it, where they're just like, Alan Moraine, you can see. Just, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed, like, them going through all the games and stuff like that. Anyway, to get onto this one, I thought it was fun. Like I said, the whole first episode is so long, so drawn out, nothing happens. Where I thought it was interesting that it picks up right where the last episode, like, ended, with the lava coming down from the Dominators and stuff like that. And then they go to Nowhere, which, watching this from, like, 2019, like, I just think about, like, Guardians of the Galaxy and Nowhere, No with a K, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it's Nowhere. I don't know, it made me laugh. Jamie seeing Scotland, Zoe seeing her home city, which nobody seems to know, the weird, creepy robots, stuff like that. I was like, okay, it's so long, it's so drawn out. Once we start getting into, like, episode 2 is kind of where it gets more interesting. And I love the part where, like, Jamie's shot and he's just frozen. And then the Doctor has to, like, put his face back on, and he does it wrong, and he gets, like, it's a different actor. So the actual actor that played Jamie was sick. He had, like, chickenpox or something. And so he couldn't do it, and so they had to rewrite it and get a different actor in there. I loved it. I thought it was a brilliant way. Like, it was better than just like, oh, he's gone. Where? Oh, no, never mind. Episode 3, he's back. So much better than that. Which, to be honest with you, Doctor Who tends to do a lot. Like, when any of the actors go on holiday or anything like that, they just seem to wander away, and then they come back a couple episodes later. Like, I loved how they didn't do that. They were just like, nope, Doctor messed up, got the face wrong, now this is what Jamie looks like. Sorry. Especially with Doctor Who, with all the regenerations and stuff like that, I bought it. I thought it was great. I really liked the kids and the riddles. I tried to keep up with it, but I couldn't. Like, I got some of them, and, like, I even got some of the answers, but I couldn't get all of it. And just the riddles together, like how the Doctor figured out, like, where Jamie was missing or whatever, because missed without the T, and I was like, where did you even come up with that? And so, I don't know, it was too much for me. The whole forest of words thing was really interesting. I liked it. So from this point on, the villain behind this is the Master Brain. And they just keep saying the Master over and over and over again. The robots work for the Master. We have to fight the Master. And again, I've mentioned this in other reviews for Doctor Who. Like, the Master, as we know of him, is not a character until the 3rd Doctor at all. And so anytime they say the Master, my ears perk up and I'm like, oh, it's the Master. Whereas this, like, they say it so many times and I'm like, no, it's not the Master. That's not who they're talking about. Maybe it is. Who knows? But they just, and then finally they start referring to him as the Master Brain. I was like, oh, conveniently changed. So whatever. I like the killer unicorn even, thought it was great. At one point they do say the master is supremely intelligent, and I was like, oh, so now he's also the master intelligence or whatever from the Yeti episodes. I was like, okay, so how many different characters is this guy now? Jamie getting his face back, all of the other characters like the Minotaur, Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels, Rapunzel shows up. I like Medusa was actually a really interesting concept where like the snakes in her hair were almost like claymation, stuff like that. I bought all of it. I thought it was so great that all of these characters live in fiction. So it's a land of fiction. And even Carcass, I think was his name, who was like the superhero that only Zoe knew of. And it's, oh, he's a comic strip character from the year 2000. I wish, I don't know, maybe they did, but I wish in the year 2000 they had actually published like just a one-shot comic book, whatever, graphic novel, something with this character just to have made it canon. I think it would have been great. The Jamie and Zoe like getting closed in the book was actually interesting. It kind of reminded me of Gumby, to be honest. Like I grew up with Gumby. I love Gumby. My dog's named after Gumby's dog, all sorts of stuff. But like when they're going into the book, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. But then, cause I expected them to like pop up in some other land and they didn't. So I was like, oh, that's disappointing. I loved the line where the doctor's like, I've yet to see a robot that can climb! And he runs and he like starts climbing the stairs, which is clearly a shout out to like Cybermen and, oh god, the Daleks who don't actually like learn to fly for several years, stuff like that. So I really liked his like, you can't catch me, I'm up here now, stuff like that. And then finally when we get to the end, and it turns out that it's just this guy that was kidnapped years ago and is just writing stories for this master brain to like live through them. And he's like, I've written 500,000 words and he wants more. And he just wants like the doctor to take over because the doctor will live longer, has more knowledge, all sorts of stuff like that. And the doctor's like, no. And so they have to like start fighting back and forth, like coming up with like different villains and different heroes to like sword fight and stuff like that. And then like the ending just craps out where it's just like like we overloaded him and they grabbed the guy and he's like, I can go home now. And the doctor's like, hopefully. And the TARDIS comes back together. And the end. And I was like, what is that? Like, it was so abrupt. Just like the Dominators was such an abrupt ending. Like, it didn't set up for the next adventure, and it didn't really close the last one. It was just like, okay, we're done. Out of ideas, out of funding, whatever. And so, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved it. Like I said, it reminded me a lot of the Celestial Toymaker. So, for those who've seen it, what did you guys think? What do you guys think about my bad taste in, like, board game episodes? Let me know. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for The Invasion.